Welcome to the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. Your hosts, Bill McKenna, Paul Robert, and special guests discuss ideas for creating alignment in your sales and marketing efforts and ways to accelerate growth. Now let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. Just before we started today, we were talking about dogs because actually Paul says his dog is snoring in the background. And our guest today, who I'll introduce in a minute, said he had to chase his dog out of his office so he didn't start barking during the podcast. So this one is going to be a real dog of a show. I'm sorry, Paul.
But if that doesn't represent 2025, I don't know what does. You know, our dogs are our biggest concern in the background. So
yeah, for sure. But hey, it's a nice new way of opening the podcast. So it was a little bit of a rough start. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I always tell people my humor's not good, it's just fast. So anyway, so Paul, say hello to everyone real quick.
Hello, everyone, and no dog jokes, I promise. Not from this end, at least.
Okay, I got it. And we're really excited to have a guest with us. Mark Arnold is with us today, who many of you know in the industry, and Mark's built a wonderful reputation. So, Mark, it's great to have you with us today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Bill. It's an honor to be with you, and Paul both. It's great to have you be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to have you. So, hey, Mark, I know you've been doing this a long time like me. It's kind of like we've become veterans. Actually, all of us here are part of the veteran team of credit union marketers, I guess, but tell us about yourself a little bit, your background, how you got in the industry, and a little bit what you're doing these days.
Well, my very first job at a credit union was about a year out of college, and I went to work as a lowly marketing coordinator. And I was part of my job was to dress up as the credit union mascot. So I got to go to work every day dressed as Rex the Sabosaurus, right, and whatnot. So that was my first job. And honestly, I was struggling in that job quite a bit, making a lot of mistakes and doing things like spelling the CEO's name wrong in the member newsletter. Right, that'll get you fired. Yeah. So my boss, the VP of marketing, she brought me to her office one day and she sat me down and she looked me dead in the eye. She said, "Mark, you will always be a failure in marketing. You need to get out." And she just didn't mean get out of the credit union. She meant get out of the marketing field completely. You are so bad at this. It's like, wow, okay, well, I was married and wanted to keep my job, right? So at that point, I had a choice to make. I was either going to be fired or transferred to the collection department, right? Yeah, right. My version of purgatory. Well, like I said, I want to keep a job, so I went into collections, could do pretty good at it because I could communicate and talk to people, was doing fine in that, and then eventually went into lending on the branch side because, as you guys know, it helps to have a collection background when you're in lending. So I did that for a while and realized, though I was utterly miserable because about 4.5 years after the "you'll always be a failure" speech, I was like, I wasn't doing what I enjoyed doing, which was communicating, writing, things like that. And so then a job came open at what was then the Texas Credit Union League for a lowly marketing coordinator. And at that point, my career was going well, and I was well on my way to success, whatnot, but I was really not doing things I enjoyed. So I had a choice to make. Do I take a pay cut and go backwards in my career, or do I stay where I was at? And so at that point, I decided to do that. I took a pay cut, went backwards in my career, and there got hooked up with a mentor who taught me all the ins and outs of marketing and branding, coached me quite a bit, really poured his life into mine, and eventually became the communications manager there at the league, and then eventually left the league to go work at another credit union in the Dallas area as their VP of marketing, led them through a name change and a rebrand, was named as National Marketer of the Year, went on to become a senior vice president of that organization over multiple areas, including marketing and HR and some of the technology areas and member investments and whatnot. And then about 12 years after doing that, I decided that, really my heart and passion was helping credit unions across the country with their marketing and branding. So formed about 13, 14 years ago, formed On the Mark Strategies to really make sure no credit union ever fails when it comes to their strategy, their marketing, and their branding. So that's more about me than you'll ever want to know, but that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Have you learned to spell names correctly, Mark? Is that still your calling card?
It's still the beauty of good a good editor, right? You need a good editor.
It
Yeah.
sounds like that first CEO you had as a boss need a little bit of culture training, Paul. You should have been there early on
On
for
how to
him.
handle improvement opportunities. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
for
That's
sure.
right.
Hey,
That's
but
right, Paul.
seriously, Mark, two things that stuck out about that. Number one is you were willing to take a step back. We have to do that sometimes. So our younger audience out there that might be in a similar stage in their career, that's a decision that many of us have had to make. And then the second thing was the mentor. And gosh, where would we be without mentors? So if anybody in our audience is in a mentoring position, you can really affect lives, no question about that. So
Yeah. So as we get into this discussion, one of the things that immediately pops into my mind when I talk about marketing in credit unions is the word execution. And the reason I say that, Mark, is because like you, we've worked with many credit unions, different people inside that have skills, different skill sets, right? Or different internal marketing departments, external people. And one of the things that I say to every credit union is the marketing that does not get out the door is not good marketing. I don't care what you're trying to do. If you can't get it done, you need help. Or if you don't have the expertise to get it done, you need help. So when I built my agencies back in the day and worked with clients, I found so many of them that needed that external help. It wasn't just their internal team. They could have had good people, but they needed extra bandwidth. So tell us a little bit about your organization, the type of work you do for credit unions, and what maybe expound upon that idea of that expansion of resources a little bit too, if you could.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Bill. Well, what we have found is the top 10 banks in the US have 78% of all the assets. And we think that's a crime. We really think that more of those assets need to be in credit unions, right? And so we really help credit unions capture some of that business that they're losing. You talked about execution. There's a knowing doing gap in credit unions. A lot of times we know what to do, we're just not able to do it and execute on it. And that's where we come in. And we really help lots of credit unions across the country, help them with their day-to-day marketing from implementation. Obviously, on the Mark strategies in our name. We lead with strategy. We help on the creative side as well. We do things like rebrand, we do websites, different things like that to help them really communicate their message into the community so that they can grow. At the end of the day, a lot of times you don't really have a loan growth problem or a member growth problem. A lot of times you have a marketing problem. And so we go in there and really assess things. And one of the very first things that we like to do is a marketing assessment, is to really look and see, where are those gaps? And we help you identify that both strategically and tactically, and really give you some recommendations on how to improve your credit union. Because if you improve marketing, you improve everything in the credit union. That's kind of our philosophy.
love that. Hey, Mark, expound if you would please on that knowing doing gap. I love your phraseology there. But what's behind that? Is it lack of resources? Is it lack of sophistication? All of the above? What's your perspective on that, please?
Yeah, it could be resources and really two resources, bandwidth and budget. Sometimes we think resource, you automatically go to budget, but it could be just a bandwidth issue. Do you have enough people in your organization to help you? And that's where we're able to come in because we have a team of people to help your credit union grow. So it's very hard to have a huge, giant marketing department at your disposal at a credit union with, a copywriter, a videographer, all down the list. So you need a team of folks to be able to help you with that. And so that's where we can come in to help with the bandwidth issue. And then also on the budget side to make it very affordable for credit unions. But sometimes that's why that knowing doing gap is there. Sometimes, and this is where you play come into play here, is it's culture, right? Sometimes there's a culture problem. Every credit union has a culture, but is it the culture you want? Right? Maybe it's a marketing culture. Maybe it's a we watch expenses culture. Maybe it's a member focused culture. I don't know what it is, but you have to identify that culture, and sometimes that could be the cause of a gap as well. But we recommend doing an assessment first, and we have found that that's really where the magic happens. Is if you can do a marketing assessment. For example, we did one with a credit union recently, and they were going to enter new markets. And so one of the questions was, will our brand translate into new markets? And before they did that, they felt like they needed to get an assessment of what was working well, what was not working well, where were their gaps, and how they close the gaps. The CEO at the end of our assessment came back, and what she said really kind of stopped me dead in my track. She said, "We have learned to glance at our competitors and glare at ourselves. Glance at our competitors and glare at ourselves." So she has found one of the best ways to improve her credit union is to look internally for ways they can improve their marketing. And when they did that, then they entered those new markets successfully. They're seeing growth, and now they're having the success they want to.
Yeah. What are some of those internal ways? What are you referencing there?
As far as internal marketing ways, a lot of it too is your own internal marketing messages. Uh, Marketing, yes, it's external, but there's an internal component to marketing. Philosophically, we believe everyone is in marketing. And everyone at your credit union is in marketing as well. And when you can drill that down and get them to really get excited and understand their brand, then that really helps on the internal side. One thing we do a lot with our clients is we do brand training. We help those people on the everyday job to understand their connection between their job and the credit union's brand. Direct correlation. You can have a fantastic external brand. You can have great visuals, great messaging. But if your tellers, if your loan officers, if your new account folks aren't living it every single day, it doesn't matter. And so when you can train them and teach them to see the connection between your external brand and your internal service, that's where the magic happens.
And the congregation said amen, because you're right on, man. Like, that's what we talk about all the time, the foundations of who we are, right? And this whole podcast, one of the reasons we did that is because Paul and I both feel so strong that many credit unions, you're not going to win the battle with service. Nobody's, everyone talks about you're great at service, but no one cares about service. That's expected today. Great service is expected, and it's really increasing even more with the amount of technology, because people want seamless interactions. They want to be able to do transactions seamlessly. That's expected. But when you build a brand that resonates and you know how to communicate that externally and internally, starting internally, you can do something great. And Paul, I mean, when he talked about the word brand, I knew that you were listening, because we talk about that all the time and what you do, the importance of that. And, what do you have to add to that part, Paul?
Well, I would also point to, and Mark chime in on this, the evolution of the brand, the evolution of service. I mean, what it's been in the past isn't what it necessarily needs to be in the future in order for you to continue to thrive. And so, Mark, as you look at the younger generation, first of all, both potential members as well as employees, their definition of service is different. Their definition of who they want to work for and do business with is different. What are you seeing in that regard, Mark?
You're 100% right. In some cases now, banks are surpassing credit unions when it comes to service, on service satisfaction levels. And that shocks us in the credit union world, where our service is so much better. Well, the reason that banks have now surpassed credit unions is because of how people define service. It used to be, well, when you walk into the branch, do they call me by my name? That's good service. Now it is, does your app work? Right? How fast is that? How good is your chat? All that is changing, and yeah, think about that. One exercise you can do at your credit union when it comes to branding and service is this: answer the question, what makes your credit union different, in 6 words or less. 6 words or less, and you can't say service, community, or people in your answer. Ooh, suddenly that question becomes a lot harder, because we work with credit unions all over the country. We ask that question, what makes your credit union different? They all say that, service. And people make us different. And the American flag drops from behind them as they're talking, right? Give me a break. Suddenly that becomes much more difficult, right? So you got to get to a real differentiation, not use the same words everybody says. You never drive down the highway and see a billboard, come to our credit union bank, our service stinks. As Bill said, service is table stakes now. So you've really got to look at it. You can't, really, pin your brand on service per se anymore.
Yeah, it's absolutely not possible.
I think that's also true, Mark, just to add on to that, at the board level too. I mean, I think as the board is processing strategic goals and focus for the organization, their perception of service, their perception of attracting new and different members, that all has to change as well, right?
Here's just a quick shout out to our sponsor, ironistic.com. Hey, in today's world, everyone knows the importance of having a great website and having an integrated digital marketing plan. If your credit union, community bank, or any other company is looking for that help, I can highly recommend ironistic.com. Check them out.
Paul, you're 100% right. I'm glad you said the board. When we work with our clients, we really say on a branding process, we use a brand triangle model. And we say this: your board and your senior team is the first leg of that triangle, and their job is to lead the brand. But then the second leg of that brand triangle, though, are your employees, and they have to live the brand. And then there's that third leg of the brand triangle, and that's your members and potential members. If you're leading the brand, if your employees are living the brand, then your members will love your brand. And you really design an entire brand process around that brand triangle. And it starts with the board.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's really good. Yeah. So we talked about the brand and the importance of that. And so what other things, Mark, are you seeing right now? And we could focus on all size credit unions. I'm assuming many of the clients you work with, I'm assuming this. Well, why don't you tell me, what are the types of size credit unions you typically work with?
All sizes. Yeah, all sizes. Yeah. We have clients that are, a little under $100 million in assets, all the way up to multi-billion dollars in assets. So we have all different kinds of sizes and projects we work on. So.
Yeah. So I would say definitely when we talk about, that, let's call it that small to mid-size credit union, maybe it's 100 to 500 million or 750, or, you probably do a lot of business in that realm, which is what I've always done a lot, because it seems like those credit unions have some of those gaps we were talking about earlier. They have some problems in that. Now, some of the larger organizations may be a little more specialized in how they would use someone like you or me or Paul. They may have a particular project related to something. But again, I don't know your business model like you do. But in that size we just talked about, that 100 to 5 to 750, what are some of the things you're seeing, the biggest challenges, the biggest obstacles, the things that you're seeing as the hot buttons these days? Do you have any of those that you might want to talk about?
Yeah, a couple things on that. Sometimes what we're seeing is the marketing strategy itself is missing. There needs to be a direct connection between the marketing strategy and the strategic plan itself. And going back to the gaps, sometimes there's a gap there. And you need to be able to really focus in on that, because creativity without strategy doesn't matter. You really got to lead with strategy and just draw that connection. Sometimes there's a gap there. Sometimes it is a bandwidth issue. Sometimes, honestly, they can't handle, from a marketing perspective, all that's going on. It's just the speed of change is so fast, and that's why sometimes they need a partner, a helper to help them with that. Those are a couple out there. And then to kind of go back to what Paul's hitting on earlier, as the culture guy, he's spot on, right? The culture, it matters. And so we're seeing great unions that says you have to focus in on that. And culture is such a, I don't know, it's a fuzzy word at times, and certainly CFOs, when you throw out the word culture, they roll their eyes. No, what we have found is the most successful credit unions have a strong culture in place, and there's a direct correlation between strong culture and strong financials. Direct correlation between strong culture and strong financials. And what you're looking for is, you're not looking for consensus at every single decision. You're looking for alignment. That's what you want. Consensus is everybody agrees on everything. That's not a good culture. A good culture is alignment. You want to be aligned on it. But we're seeing that. And going back to your original question, though, some of the gaps we're seeing out there, I mentioned, a couple of others. Another one is the websites. I would say that's where you're seeing, just from a tactical standpoint, is, and unfortunately, many credit union websites are somewhat outdated. The reality is, right now, the average credit union website needs to be changed about every 3 years. And yet a lot of credit unions have 5, 6, 7-year-old websites. And I'm talking these, minimal updates. I'm talking, it really needs to be a fresh look at it. Why is that so important? Because consumers are going to judge you by your website. In a recent survey of consumers, 78% judge a organization's credibility by their website. Their credibility, which goes directly to their brand, right? So you got to think about that. If your website is beginning to get a little long in the tooth, it looks a little outdated, then the perception is your credit union is outdated. So from a practical, tactical standpoint, you need to take a hard look at your site and say, do we need to invest some funds in redesigning your site? Because it's amazing how old some credit union sites look. And it's your front porch.
And a lot of the marketing we do leads back to web, or if whether it's landing pages or website, whatever, it's going to do that. And I agree. I know recently one of our guests has been Jason Causa from Reviews Up, which I happen to know. We connected with you as well. And that's another huge miss, isn't it? Online reviews, because your online reputation management is a huge one today.
Oh, it's massive, and so much so that when I had the opportunity to visit with him and Reviews Up, we're now really actively going to our clients and suggesting that you do Reviews Up. If you're not doing that, you need to. It's a fantastic program, a fantastic company to work with. Highly encourage you to do that because that's going to make a difference. Again, that's another tactical thing you can do. Your website, do Reviews Up for sure. At a strategic level, focus on your brand. But those are definitely some gaps we're seeing. Again, going back to it, you may not have a member growth problem. You may have a marketing challenge.
How about data? How about siloed data? Let's talk about that because, boy, yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in data. I just know that we have an industry problem in that we have so much data that we're not able to access. And especially in that smaller to mid-sized credit union, there's a lot of issues we could work on there with automated marketing, data integration, trying to come up with a good CRM product, automated marketing tools. Are you seeing a lot more discussions in that area as well?
Yeah, when we're doing strategic planning sessions for clients, data always comes up. But one thing we like to go to is a great quote by Jay Baer. He said, "We are surrounded by data, but we're starved for insights." Surrounded by data, starved for insights. And really, that's the approach we take with credit unions we work with is, yes, let's look at your data, let's mine it. But the key thing is, what are you going to do with it? And what are the trends you're seeing? Yes, you have all this data. Honestly, credit unions have more data on their members than Amazon does. Amazon would kill to have our data, right? Because we know when members get paid, we know their credit score, we know more about our members than Amazon does. But Amazon is doing but Amazon's doing a great job leveraging the data. We as credit unions are kind of struggling with that. So I would recommend, when you think about data, hone in on 3 or 4 pieces of data that you could leverage and manage rather than try and go after 20, 30 points of data. It's too much. Zero in and look, what are the insights? What is the data? What's the story behind the data? And then secondly, what's the action we're going to take based on the story? So that's what I would do with data. What's the story and what's the action we take on it?
Yeah, it makes sense. Paul, you had a comment?
Well, I was gonna ask, not necessarily related to data, but Mark, you mentioned earlier about, I think when you were talking about your assessment, a credit union that was going into a new market, and we have many credit unions out there that are in the process of doing that or strategizing to do that as a way of growth. They've tapped out in their present footprint, and so they're looking to go outside of it. What should be the thought process as we think about it from a strategic standpoint first? What are some of the decisions that need to be made around that, Mark?
Yeah, love that, Paul. That's a great question. A couple things. First of all, we really encourage you to see, have you really tapped into your existing membership base? Can you get more out of your existing members and more out of your existing market? So don't assume you're automatically going to have growth when you enter new markets. That's a definitely growth strategy. Entering new markets is a growth strategy, but there are other growth strategies as well. Getting more out of your existing members is a growth strategy. Offering new products and services to your existing members, that's a growth strategy as well. So then another strategy could be very much going into those new markets. What we counsel is make sure your brand is going to connect in the new market. So before you go into new markets, make sure it's going to connect correct. Is your messaging going to work or not? And make sure that it's similar fields of membership as well. So there's multiple factors that go into that kind of growth strategy and into new areas, but it really starts with your brand. Will it connect, and are there similar fields of membership around you?
Yeah, you said something that I totally agree with. I think most credit unions, if they had the crystal ball, the marketing crystal ball in front of them, and they could look at their members, they'd realize real quickly the low-hanging fruit is deeper relationships. I think we always look at this new opportunity as exciting and we're going to add new people. But the honest truth is they have not built frequency to drive deeper relationships with their members. When you build frequency with the things you should be doing, with the continual email, with good email that goes out to them, with good educational content, financial literacy, and when you build frequency with a good onboarding program, for instance, with new members, when you do those things, you will see depth of relationship increase. And you may still want to go after new people, but the honest truth is that's not necessarily the first place you should be looking.
Yeah, let me pull on that thread a little more because I think you're spot on, Bill. Uh, think about this. If your credit union did not add one single new member next year, but you got all of your existing members to add one product or service per household, what would that do to your financials? I mean, massive growth, right? And I'm not saying new member growth is not important. It's very important. But the reality is you can grow financially just by growing your existing membership base, and that's critical. A lot of credit unions think we have a membership growth problem. You don't have a front door problem. You got a back door problem. For every 2 members coming in the front door, you got 2 walking out the back, right? And so if we can close that back door with some member retention tactics to be able to keep and actually have them do more with you, that is critical. Because the reality is your members are cheating with Charles Schwab. They're riding the wagon with Wells Fargo and they're cavorting with Citibank. What if you captured some of that business, right? That's what you want to do.
Yeah, I like your adjectives. Those were good. I like those.
And I have to point out, this is the sales and marketing podcast. That's sales, guys, right, Mark? I mean, that's
100%
that's what we're talking
sales,
about.
Paul.
As an industry, we've run from that word, but now we got to run back to that word, don't we?
We have to embrace it, right? And we do a lot of sales training for our clients, and we call it member engagement training because some people hear the word sales and they're immediately turned off. But the reality is, if you can teach your employees to connect with your members, hint, hint, sell to them, right, then you're going to grow. And it's a must today. You've got to be able to have that sales and service culture in place. It's one of the best growth tools out there is to implement a sales and service program that is customized to your brand so that you're not pushing products and services. We're not saying that at all. We're saying engage with your members and truly serve them. The reality is service leads to sales. Right? If you give great service, it is natural to sell to someone. And honestly, and a lot of times, if you have great products and services, which credit unions do, if your employees aren't offering those products and services to their members, guess what? You're not really serving them. I mean, if you had something to help someone, and you don't offer to help them, then you're not helping them. That's all you're doing. You're simply asking for the business. Capture some of that share of wallet is critical.
I agree that service leads to sales, Mark, but it's got to be an active effort. It's got to be proactive. You can't just latently think it's going to happen. It's not. Our members aren't going to come to us. Like you said, they're being tempted by all these hundreds, if not thousands of other FIs out there. We've got to go to them, and we got to leverage that data that Bill brought up and have a strategy for going to the members with that.
Let's pull on that thread, Paul, because you're right. What we've seen is a trend. For years and years, credit unions were transactional oriented. The member come in, they do the transaction, they leave. They realize, we can't do that. So now we've got to go to a service-based model. We've got to serve our members. And that was good. But then everybody copied service, as Bill pointed out. Now the credit unions that are having success are not transactional. They're not service-based. They actually are advice-based, where you're really giving advice to your members. You're really engaged with them. That's the model that's working. Not service, really good, where they come back to you because you're the expert. And they see you as that. That's when they start getting those repeat purchases.
And they've built trust. You build trust. So, we all need someone we trust when it comes to finances. And especially you see so many credit unions that are so really engaged with the words financial education, because we know that's critical. You build trust through that. But I think not enough credit unions are really leveraging the way they should that financial education, because when someone isn't familiar with a particular transaction they have to do, or I won't even call it a transaction, I'll call it, like, for instance, a mortgage or something to do with investing or something else, they want to talk to somebody. So we can start that conversation using really good educational content. but even the tellers, and Paul and I, we talk about this all the time, right? The old tellers per se, member service reps, they need to learn to be better consultants. They need to understand how to help people grow. That also gives them a future for growth within the credit union. Instead of just being a teller, they are starting to learn more about financial services, and that gives them expansion within the organization or outside if it comes to that. But Paul, right, we talk about that all the time, the importance of that turning that teller, turning that MSR into somebody that can actually consult and lead that member down the path to create trust, right?
Now, the difference that needs to be spotlighted there, Bill, is that's not a switch that you just flip. Somebody can't go from being transactional to now being a financial product expert or an advisor. So again, back to what we were just saying, Mark, you have to strategize for that. You have to accept the fact that, A, this is a long game, okay? It's not going to happen overnight. And then B, there is no finish line. So we've got to have a strategy. We got to build our culture around it. We have to have that internal branding that you talked about earlier in order to move the needle towards being that financial advisor. Do you agree with that?
100%. And here's a little bonus tip. Since this is the sales right podcast as well, right? Part of that. Here's a bonus tip on that is you got to have your people follow up. That is a huge key is follow up. Follow up is the key to success on that. And then you need to systemize that follow up. What if your frontline tellers just wrote 5 thank you notes a week to different people who came in, right? Just thank you for your business. No one's getting that. No one's getting a handwritten personalized note. Or what if you had your loan officers do something like that, or whoever it is? But follow up is the key. That's getting very tactical. But from a practical standpoint, that's something that will absolutely improve your sales. Is just do some great old-fashioned follow up.
I also think that substantiates your brand. It differentiates you. When's the last time, guys, you got a thank you note from somebody that you made a purchase from or certainly did a transaction with?
Exactly. No, but if you did that and if you systemized it to where you made it a part of your process, wow, that would grow your credit union phenomenally.
Yeah, I love that. That's good stuff. Hey, we have a few more minutes and then we need to wrap up. We could probably talk for 3 or 4 hours here easily. And then, we'll definitely plan on sometime in the future, get you back and talk about some more stuff because this was really good. Mark, if someone wants to reach out and get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. Give you a couple of ways. First of all, you can go to our website, onthemarkstrategies.com. That's onthemarkstrategies.com. That's one way. You can email me directly at mark@onthemarkstrategies.com. I'd love to connect with you that way. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn handle is the initial J, Mark Arnold. So if you follow me there. So those 3 ways to connect. Would love to stay in touch with you and your folks there.
Yeah, great. Any closing comments, Paul, about today's discussion?
Well, I love everything that we've talked about. And I guess, this comes up, Bill, in just about every podcast to some extent. But this one, maybe it's manifested more than others because our industry has changed and it is changing right before our eyes. And what has worked in the past is likely not going to work, at least nearly as well in the future. And so it doesn't mean it was wrong. It doesn't mean what we're doing today is wrong. It's just that we've got to be willing to change. And I think a lot of, Mark, what you've talked about from a strategy, a brand, even a tactical standpoint, it's all about change. I think that's the operative word right now as we look to the future with credit unions.
Agreed. Mark, any closing thoughts?
I'd have 2 closing thoughts. One is to remember these 2 principles. Number 1, clarity wins. Clarity wins. How clear is your brand? You've got to make sure that it is crystal clear to your members, your potential members, and your staff, your board and executive team. Does everybody know where you're going? Are you clear? You've got to have a clear message. And second principle to remember is simplicity wins. Right? Think about how would you describe your in 6 words or less. Make it simple. Clarity wins. Simplicity wins when it comes to branding, when it comes to your strategy, and when it comes to your people.
Okay, great. Yeah, and as we talked today, you did one of those little things that I just thought was the coolest. We talked about data and all these different things, but you know what really got me today? With the thank you notes. I know it sounds crazy, but we don't do enough of that kind of stuff. And those are little tiny things that can really move the needles, especially we talk about these intense onboarding programs, which are very important. But those thank you notes, that's just something that's so simple. Like every credit union could do that. You don't need technology to do that. And it can make a huge difference in those new members. It could make a huge difference. So, Mark, again, really appreciate you having on today. This was
It was
great.
an honor to chat with you and Paul both. Thank you so much. I will say one of my goals for the last 2 years, past year and a half or so, to be on this podcast. I just want to be on this podcast. I know, so I'm so honored. So thank you so much. You guys are really because it really is serving so many out there that want to do this well. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we really enjoy doing this, and we look forward to continuing for a while.
Hey, Bill, in spite of our start, I think this was a pretty doggone good podcast. So
Yeah, it was.
I love it. You guys are killing me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I know. I think we definitely need to end with it, Paul. But this was great. Hey guys, thanks so
Mark.
much.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you.
And we'll see everyone again on the next episode of the Credit Union Sales and Marketing Podcast. Have a great day.